Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. You may notice a few things are different in this particular video. One, I am sick as a dog. I'm actually coming down off of a sinus infection and improving. But I didn't get a video out last week, so I really needed to get one out this week. Sick or not, the show must go on. You will notice my glasses look a little different. That is because they broke. A couple of weeks ago on a Wednesday night, during a Wednesday night game, I was fortunate enough to have my friend Wayne from OniWorks in the game, who performed a more than serviceable repair with a hot glue gun. A couple of days later, I went, picked up some Sucru, the air-curing silicone compound, and that is what is holding my glasses together. And they could last this way indefinitely, but I am going to have to go see an ophthalmologist anyway, get my prescription, and order some glasses online. I made a video last week, or at least I did my best to make a video last week. What ended up happening is that I recorded a brilliant and well thought out review of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and started to load all of my footage into the computer, only to find out that for some reason my phone had completely failed to get any of the audio. It's not the first time my phone has turned itself off when I put it into my pocket or some other glitch has happened, so there are some other changes. This is a Yeti Blue microphone with a pop blocker on a flexible microphone stand. This is a studio quality microphone. It runs straight into the computer, so there's no question of whether or not it is recording. It's just doing its job along with the camera. The new camera is a Logitech high-definition widescreen webcam, which is also equipped with a tripod mount, so if I want to do any external shoots, it just folds up for travel, and I can set this up just about anywhere. If I want to do anything outdoors or at a workshop or who knows what. It's still in the stages of me learning to work with the equipment, so hopefully this will come out fine. The microphone has a number of different settings. I can't recommend the Yeti Blue high enough. Right now it's on this cardio setting, which means it's only recording what's in front of it, which is me. So there's a fan behind it, which is keeping me alive and keeping my air moving right now. And if there is any auxiliary noise, I can always edit that out and then throw the footage audio back in. Much easier than putting things together from two different sources. So, I attended Gateway, Strategicon 2015, a couple of weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, and ran some Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I've also been running it for a group that I play with on Wednesday night. I was running it when these broke. So, I've read the 3 core books, I bought the Dungeon Master screen, and I think I have enough experience with the system under my belt that I can share some of my impressions and give you a decent review of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. As I have said before, I thought Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition and 3.5 were nice, simple, elegant, was a good representation of the property, along with Pathfinder being a good representation of it. And I thought that Dungeons & Dragons 4.0 was an abomination that needed to be burned. So, how did they do in 5th edition? Here's a player's handbook. The books are pricey, don't get me wrong. I ordered my books from Amazon, and apparently that is where Wizards is offloading some of their factory seconds. So there's a couple of dings on the cover, and I'm good with that. I mean, it gives the book some character. But knowing what I know about the system now, I would have paid full price, gladly. Let's work it from the outside in. The cover art is spectacular. The cover itself is a combination of four color glossy printing, and this section back here, which is matte black on matte black paper, which makes the red and white text really jump out. They've gone to the unusual effort of making the inside cover also black paper, which gives the book a kind of a professional feel. It seems clean and polished just because of that. Of course, if you're the kind of person who likes to put their name in the front of their book, having a black background can be a problem unless you can get your hands on a silver Sharpie. The binding is perfectly fine. It's not in any way loosely bound. The pages stay in. The pages are printed in 4-color glossy. And the background of each page is a very effective mood-setting parchment color and pattern. Opening this book up, even brand new, it has the look and almost the feel of an older book, something with some history and weight behind it, and that is kind of appropriate for a D&D book. That's the physical stats of the product. All of the core books share these features and are good physical products. The artwork is stunningly good. I mean, it's effective. It tells you exactly what you're dealing with. There is a lot of visual reference of things that you can encounter. Not just the monsters and the people, but coins and bits of equipment and the food and the horses and the places. You get a sense of where you're at. Not only does the art, which is all smooth and professional, give you landmarks throughout the work, which is something really excellent. If I'm flipping through for something that I know what the picture is, the picture's big and beautiful and I can find it very easily. But it's also evocative and really tells me what I'm dealing with. Those are some damn fine pictures of weapons. I will state a reservation that I'm not 100% happy with all of the artwork, but I will cover that more. The first 2 books, absolutely fine. Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, really good artwork, no complaints all the way through. My problems with the Monster Manual, and I will cover that when I get there. That's what it looks like. Now, as to the writing, the style of writing is engaging. This is a book that speaks equally well to both the neophyte player, someone who's never picked up a role-playing game before, but also people who have followed Dungeons and Dragons from the 1st edition on through. And that's not easy. That is not even vaguely easy to write in such a way that it is not over the head of someone who is just getting into the hobby, but is not so far under the head of someone who's been in the hobby for decades. It's a little edged lower towards the new player, but I'm good with that. I'm really good with that. It's comforting, for one thing. It does not tax me. And as a longtime player of D&D, one of the things that I want to see more than anything else are new players of D&D. I want to see something that will get them into this property. And the writing here does it. It is engaging, it is inviting, it makes the material seem fun and alive, and that's excellent. Starting with character creation, getting into the nuts and bolts. It's D&D character creation. It explains, we start with some of the mechanics and what is a role-playing game and how do you play and what's a D20 and what are dice, and a couple of very general rules, including advantage and disadvantage, which I will get to a little bit later. When we get to character generation, this is nice. It's Dungeons and Dragons as you're used to it. Roll some stats. The suggested rolling system is roll 4 die 6, take the best 3 to generate 6 stats, and then assign them as you wish. Or you can just use a standard array of numbers that is more or less average. They give you plenty of examples as you go through. And then there are the races. Dwarves and elves and halflings, humans. That's your core group. Those are the ones that are presented as your standard default any game player character races. Then they throw in some that are optional. Dragonborn. And if they had to include the Dragonborn, including them as an optional race is perfectly acceptable. Gnomes. I find that unusual that they would make that a optional race. I like gnomes. Half-elves and half-orcs are optional races. And that's also unusual. I don't know why that would be, but there's some interesting choices here all through. And tieflings, which I can understand being an optional race. When you get to the first races, the stat default races, the dwellers, orcs, halflings, humans, the dwarves and elves and halflings have branches of their races. You're not just a dwarf. You're a hill dwarf or a mountain dwarf. And you're not just a halfling. You're a quick or a stout. And then there's elves. And elves, unlike dwarves or halflings, have 3 racial paths that they can go along. The wood elf, the high elf, or the dark elf. And why they would include drow, or dark elves, as a standard player character race, and not Duragar, which are dark dwarves, is interesting to me. Mostly probably because about a third of the example descriptive text in here refers to Drizzt, who is a very popular dark elf player character hero in Dungeons and Dragons literature. And they really wanted to make his path of existence canon from the beginning, I think. Interesting. And drow are very popular. Lord knows I've been in a movie with one. Humans have a number of different, not racial paths that they can take, but different human societies, mostly differentiated by appearance and name, But I like their nod to diversity there. It has a certain genuine quality to it. Also, what I like about the races is that most races have a specific bonus. You get a +2 to a stat, and then a +1 to another stat, depending on what racial subclass you take, and some other abilities. Humans get a +1 to all stats down the board. That's it. And that's kind of awesome. It means that everyone has a chance to be superlative in something. Humans just have this adaptability and versatility based on native stats. You know, I've talked about stats versus skills and whatnot before, and that's... humans have a place in the world. They're not just that racial class that you don't make any modifications to. Now, they're kind of buff, actually. Once you have your race down, and in some cases, in just about every case, humans notwithstanding, once you have a race, you have a playable character. You may have enough stuff to actually start and go out adventuring before you even pick up a class, which I like. More about that in a few minutes. Classes. Standard D&D classes. Barbarian, Cleric, Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Wizard, Warlock, Sorcerer, Bard. And I need to talk a little bit about what they did with classes. This is a departure from previous editions, and it's nice. It is very nice. Your class gives you your proficiency bonus, a number which is added to everything that you are proficient in. Starts at a +2. Between level 1 and level 20, it will raise 4 times. No more. So it doesn't raise for a few levels to start with, and every 4 or 5 levels you get a bonus to your proficiency. And I like that, because it means that your bonuses and your numbers are not spiraling out of control as you get to the mid-levels. You also get toys, features. You know, there are racial features like dark vision or special proficiency bonuses, and classes get features. You know, you have the sneak attack for the thief, or fighting style, or what have you. Spellcasting is a feature. But every class gets some new feature or an advancement to a previous feature every level. There are no blank levels. So yes, you get hit points every level, and that helps. But you get new toys every level. And as you advance in levels, certain character classes can take different archetypes. Your fighter can become some kind of an archer or sniper or an eldritch fighter and might pick up some magic. There are 3 or 4 paths that the classes can take. If I've got 4 people playing human fighters, by 6th or 7th level, they can be indistinct or completely separate characters, completely different. You could have an entire party of fighters, and by 7th, 8th level, they are all carrying a different specialization and fill a different niche in the party. So you've got the standard character classes, but they are diverse character classes and can be adapted and tweaked and modified as you go forward. Character creation or character advancement isn't on rails. There are decisions to make, and it's not a question of right or wrong decision. You can't, oh, you fucked up on that build and it's not going to get its maximum advantage. No, that's not an issue. What do you want your character to do? Where do you see this character going? Those are important questions again. And that is wonderful. It means that there's a lot about this particular edition that makes it less an exercise in working out the numbers and finding the angles and min-maxing the characters, and more about role-playing, playing your character, and watching them grow. Now, once we get through classes, there is something new in 5th edition that I love, and it's backgrounds. Your character might be a fighter, but what did they do before they were a fighter, or what are they doing when they're not being a fighter? Guild artisan, or maybe they used to be a soldier, or a sailor, or an acolyte of a religion, or a wanderer in the field, or a street urchin, getting by a day at a time on the mean streets. And the backgrounds that you choose not only give you additional equipment and additional skill proficiencies, they give you an idea of what kind of personality the character might develop. You can randomly roll personality traits under the backgrounds. Personality traits, what binds the character to a party, what drives them, what's their inspiration, what are their flaws. If you're randomly rolling up a bunch of characters like you're about to roll a first level game at a convention, you can use these random personality trait charts and have a fully fleshed out character's background in a few minutes. And that's nice. That's really nice. And it's not just something that sits in the character story. Yes, that's a really powerful wizard over there, but who knew that he might be able to pick locks? That's actually kind of interesting. Oh, you know something about locks? Oh, I might have picked up something here or there. So your characters are more diverse, more fleshed out. A first level character is a force to be reckoned with. And as characters advance, that only gets to be more true. You're not terrified that you're going to die at first level. Your magic users are more capable in general. Magic works more or less the same for every magic using class. They just have different sources of power. A warlock is bound to something besides themselves, a demigod or a demon or a being from the outside, which can be an issue, but power is power. You have spell lists for every class, and every class has its controlling stat. Wizards use their intelligence to power their spells, while a bard will use their charisma. That governs, from the beginning, the difficulty class for resisting the spells, how effective the spells are at hitting, and what kind of spells you have access to. Cantrips are spells, effectively 0-level spells, that a magic user can just keep on throwing. They're never forgotten. They don't expend a spell slot. You just keep throwing cantrips. And some of the cantrips are fairly effective, very minor combat spells. Your wizard is never out of something to contribute to a fight. Not while they've got hit points left. That's very nice. That fixes a lot of difficulties that previous editions had. It's one of the good things that came through from 4th edition, and it balances well into this. As spellcasting characters advance in levels, they get more spell slots. They can throw more spells of various levels. They can burn a spell slot at a higher level on a lower level spell to get more effect. There's tactics and strategy in how you select and prepare your spells. You don't have to employ it. You can throw it straight across. You can use the default settings and you're good. or you can reach for a little extra power here and there, and that makes for extremely versatile spellcasting characters. Combat has not changed. You have a bonus to hit based on statistics and skill level and level and your proficiency with the weapon. And you're trying to roll a d20, add your bonuses, and get over your opponent's armor class. And if you succeed on that, you hit, you do the weapon's damage, plus any bonuses you might have for that. Lather, rinse, repeat until someone's out of hit points. Certain weapons are versatile. And that's important. A short sword is a versatile weapon. What does that mean? That I can pick up a short sword and apply my strength bonus to my 2-hit roll and to my damage, or I can apply my dex bonus to both my 2-hit and my damage. High dex characters can be very effective. The most damaging weapons are not by nature versatile, but they do allow a high dex character to be very effective using, not versatile, versatile is something different. Finesse, these are finesse weapons. If a weapon is a finesse weapon like a short sword, versatile is you can use one hand or two. But it allows a finesse character, a character that uses dex instead of strength, to be as effective as a strength-using character. Again, it's a level of diversity and versatility in the characters that makes a big difference. There is a set number of conditions that you can impose on things, set types of damage. This is not different. But there is advantage and disadvantage. This is a brand new mechanic, and I love it. In certain situations, a character might have advantage in combat or on a skill check or what have you. If a character has advantage, they roll 2 die 20 instead of 1 to resolve their action, and they take the best of the 2 dice. So you have vastly increased your chances of doing what you're trying to do. If a character has disadvantage, they're prone, or they've been poisoned, or for some reason they are at a disadvantage, you still roll 2 die 20, but you take the worst of the 2 dice. That is so intuitive, so fast, such a good mechanic that I may have injured myself because I didn't think of it. That's really, really good. In play, it has made the difference between life and death. And on both sides. Killed a paladin with a box of cat skeletons. First level paladin, but he, worked his armor class up to a 20 with some splint mail. No one wanted to open the necromancer's chest. It wasn't locked. There was no traps. And no one trusted that. But the paladin's like, yeah, I've got armor class of 20. Everyone get out of the room. I'll open the chest. Open the chest. Meow, 20 cat skeletons. Just fire hose out of the chest like they were packed in like a spring, because they were. And I got 20 attacks, all of which had advantage because he had no idea it was coming at him. And that's 40 20-sided dice. I was going to roll some crits, which is the only thing that I could hit him with, but I murdered the hell out of him. He got better. The cleric was able to stabilize him and bring him back around, but wow. Yeah. Advantage and disadvantage, very effective. You can run a decent first, second level game out of this book. You can start with just this book, which is something they did in 3 and 3.5. I'm probably in 4. But there's enough, the rules for task resolution and combat resolution everything you need, which is fairly quick and elegant, is in here. And some sample monsters and enough information and treasure to make it interesting. It's a good start. It's a good book. I like it a lot. And it is a great introduction to a great system. This is the Dungeon Master's Guide. Again, really, really stellar artwork. That's a... Take note. That is a good lich. That's a very good lich. That becomes important later on. I love and hate this book. I love this book because it is brilliant. I hate this book because it is competition. I can't hate it too much. Because everything that I'm trying to do with some of my fantasy writing at the moment, they've done, and done it well, and done it more beautifully than me, and I'm jealous as hell, and that makes this an excellent, excellent book. All that procedural generation of worlds and adventures, it's in here. It's in here. Win spades. This is literally how to not just be a dungeon master, although that is in here. This is how to roll your own. This is how to make your own game world and how to populate it with countries and lands and kingdoms and warring nations and monsters and people trying to achieve control and townsfolk and citizens and things to do. Just things to do. And the treasure charts are awesome because even 0 to 4th level monsters might drop a magic item. There isn't much I can say about this book without going into probably too much detail. I will point out one worrying thing. Part 2, Master of Adventure. It opens with a picture of the Tarask. If you are familiar with Dungeons & Dragons lore, that should be frightening. If you're not, the Tarask is Dungeons & Dragons' answer to Godzilla. It's freaking unstoppable. It is a monster that you cannot destroy, only wish away for a while. It is to be universally feared. And it opens chapter 2. Pretty bad? Yeah. Then you turn the page. On the back of that page is friggin' Baba Yaga's hut. And it's like, well, when you're creating an adventure, if this is how they open up the section on creating your own adventures, oh, God. If you have murder hobos in your party, this is how to murder hobo them right back. It is not unbalanced or unfair in any way. It is how to maintain balance and fairness. But make no mistake, it does show you how to take care of problems. The artwork in here is, in spots, particularly spectacular. Not just the splash pages with Baba Yaga's hut and the Tarask, but the traps in here look like they hurt. It is... This book not only builds everything in the adventure, but it fills in the space between adventures. Your players don't need this. If you're just going to be playing, you don't want to have this book. If you're a dungeon master, you don't want to be without it. Because this does tell you what you need to have to be a dungeon master and provide you with invaluable resources. This is a good book. This is a very good book. I have some problems with this book. And I don't want to be unfair, and I don't want to be unkind. So let me start with the positives. You know, the physical nature of the book is as good as the others. It is just fine as a book. The writing is good. They've broken the stats blocks of the monsters down well, so that you recognize the monsters. They fit with the 5th edition material and are simplified a bit from previous editions, and a number of problems that have been presented in play balance have been addressed rather well. Undead are not immune to a rogue's sneak attack. That, more than anything else, might really improve just the whole nature of the game. Because now, a bunch of skeletons is not something that the rogue in the party throws their hands up and hides in shadows because they got nothing. More, on the positive side, some of the major monsters in here, a good number of the monsters, have diverse options for variants. It's not just the beholder, but it's the undead beholder and the minor beholders that can be summoned to assist beholders. There are zombies of various types and sizes, and you have options. A lot of these monsters have really impressive variants that will take what people expect out of these monsters and throw something on. And anytime you've got surprises in your monsters, you have a good thing. More. Certain monsters have not just their own abilities to go by, but layers. Monsters' layers have their own features and their own attacks. You can't just attack the beholder in its lair and expect to deal with the beholder and its servants. The lair itself is going to be attacking back and hindering your characters to make it more difficult to deal with the beholder. Any monster in here with a listed set of layer features, there's an adventure right there. Go to town, find out where the monster is, go fight the monster. That's the rest of your night, because you got to fight the monster and its servants and the lair, and that's awesome. I spoke earlier about a problem with the artwork here. Again, focusing on the positive first. It's good. It's all good. It's all technically good artwork. There are no problems with the color or the shading or the form or the technique. It's really good artwork. Everything in here is well drawn, well painted, well colored. It's good stuff. It is all professional artwork. But it is not all evocative of the things that it chooses to portray. When I get an edition of D&D and a monster manual, I look up 3 things. And these are 3 things that jumped out at me with the Dungeons & Dragons 3.0 Monster Manual. Those 3 things are the Iron Golem, the Lich, and the Mind Flayer. That is because those are the 3 monsters that immediately drew my attention and started pathways of adventures flowing through my head. And I pointed out that on the front of the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a good lich. There's a really good lich. Proper big and ethereal and ghostly and gaunt and skeletal and terrifying. I'm going to show you those 3 pictures in this book. And I'm going to describe why I've got issues. This is the 5th edition illustration of the Iron Golem. It's not scary. It's a transformer. It is full on a transformer. It is a little bit too technically correct. It is, it lacks the menace and the perspective and the grim artistry of previous illustrations of the Iron Golem. It's not an improvement. It's a good picture. It's well done. You know, there's nothing technically wrong with that picture of an Iron Golem. That's a good picture of an Iron Golem. It's just not a scary or evocative picture of an Iron Golem. I don't fear running into one of those. There's no perspective. There's no... Well, it looks like it might be pretty big, but it also kind of has dwarven features. It might be short. Oh, no. Didn't scare me. Then there is the Lich. For to handle these in alphabetical order. There's the Lich. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's correct. It looks okay for a Lich. That might be a scary thing to run into. I'd be more scared of what it was doing than of its appearance. As opposed to that one on the cover of the DMG. Oh my god. It's like that Lich's sidekick. This is the Robin Lich to that Batman Lich. It's... The dead parts are an afterthought. The magical parts are way too clean. The pencil sketch next to the colored sketch is actually a superior picture of a Lich. If they had fully realized that image, it might have come out better. But, and I don't know why they didn't. Guy didn't want to paint here. It's like, here is our Lich. And here's a sketch of what would have been a better Lich, but we didn't feel like coloring it. That doesn't help in this case. Technically correct. Beautifully rendered. Don't get me wrong. Sucky Lich. And then there's the Mind Flayer. Now, Illithid are a huge... I love Mind Flayers. I love the Illithid. I have since they were introduced. They're scary. They're otherworldly. They don't look like they belong here. Here's the first picture under Mind Flayer. Do you see something missing from this picture? Hint, it's the Mind Flayer. There's no Mind Flayer in this picture. This is a place where you might find a Mind Flayer. This is a Mind Flayer's domain. But there, on the page, the first page, where it talks about Mind Flayer, there's no friggin' Mind Flayer. Okay. Establishing atmosphere. When I turn the page, there's going to be a Mind Flayer. A Mind Flayer that fits in that environment. And that should be terrifying. Oh my God. I look at this mind flayer, and my first thought is that he should be telling Captain Kirk that humans are an undeveloped childlike race. Because the armor is all, clean and space age and metal with the seams and, but then I get a worse thought looking at this. You can define a monster's monstrousness by its similarity to, yet separation from, human norm. In previous editions of the Monster Manual, in previous works dedicated to the Illithid, the Mind Flayers, they gave him this gaunt, almost skeletal appearance. Painfully thin, yet at the same time powerful. Their posturing, their movements, their shape, their form. That is a dude in a Mind Flayer suit. Look at it. Look at it. That is a dude in a Mind Flayer suit. This Mind Flayer is not half as concerned with adventurers finding his lair as he is worried that 4 teenagers and a talking dog are going to drive up in a brightly colored van and pull his face off to reveal that he's really been Mr. Withers, owner of the Haunted Carnival, all along. It's a dude in a Mind Flayer suit. This is a Doctor Who villain. I mean, old Who villain. This is a John Pertwee villain. This is Tom Baker when they still didn't have budget. All in all, this is a good book and an invaluable resource for the Dungeon Master because it has the monsters in it. And Dungeons and Dragons has always been about fighting the monsters. 70%, 75% of the illustrations in here are properly evocative and do exactly what they need to do. Exactly what they need to do. No problems there. The rest of it is disappointing because it didn't have to be this way. They've done better artwork in the past. They've got better artwork on file. They might have wanted to give everything an entirely new look, and I applaud them for that because that is not easy. To start from scratch and to build the look of the game all over again from the ground up when you've got decades of material to rely on. So I understand what they were trying to do. And they went to good artists. They really did go to good artists because, again, technically brilliant. It's all really, really good artwork. It is in spots and in fairly important spots. All 3 of my test monsters fails to be appropriately evocative. I do have to compare it to previous editions because there's a 5 on the cover. Okay, they didn't actually put the 5 on the cover. They just call it D&D. But we know this is the 5th edition. There's a 5 in this book. And it does have to stack up against other editions. And in almost every way it does, but when it comes to the artwork for my test monsters, it doesn't. That's okay. It is still a good book. it is still a valuable resource. It should still be something that people look into having. But when you're going to have your players meet mind flayers, go get a better picture of a mind flayer. Because if someone pulls out that picture of a mind flayer on me, I'm going to laugh and try and pull his head off, because I'm pretty sure it's just a mask. Now, while I was at Strategicon, I made an additional purchase. This is the Dungeon Master screen. And you wouldn't think something like this would be important or tell you too much about the system. But it does. It really, truly does. That's good artwork. 4-panel. That's surprisingly good artwork. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you want your players to have to deal with the whole game long. Oop, dragon, look out. It is landscape rather than portrait, which is good because it doesn't cut you off from your players. It's easy to reach over. It's easy to see over. It's easy to talk over. Then you get to the inside. And the inside's important to talk about, because it's the best Dungeon Master screen I've ever seen. You have 4 panels. You have this much space to give the Game Master hopefully what information they need to get the game going and keep it going. First panel. How to make an NPC. It's all the charts for rolling, not statistics or their bonus to hit or their damage, but their personality. Personality characteristics, their ideals, their bonds, what makes them tick, flaws, and a random name generator. Oh my God. All the time that I have stopped looking off into space trying to figure out, what's the shopkeeper's name? You either say, well, the name's not important, just talk to him, or you come up with a name off the top of your head, and if you're really good at coming up with names, that's good. If you're bad at coming up with names, either you've picked up a couple of baby books, or you make up a name that doesn't sound very good. I have a whole bunch of books on my shelf up here, and I will turn around and glance along the titles and authors, hoping to find something useful. Random name generator. I'm not slowing down. I'm not stopping. I'm rolling like 2 or 3 D20, and I've got a name. This is that shopkeeper's name. It's pretty gregarious, too, so you might want to slip him a couple of bucks, and I'm sure he'll help you out. The next panel and a half after that, all the conditions. I would be looking this up 50 times a game. He's blinded. What does that mean? Or charmed, or paralyzed, or restrained. What are the bonuses? What are the penalties? What does this mean to the character to have this happen to them? It's right here, along with the illustrations from the book. So if I have referenced this before, I have an immediate visual landmark to what the situation is. Again, I'd be referencing it a dozen times during a game. I'd be spending time flipping through a book, and I'm not now, because it's right here. After that, a selection of rules I would be looking up if they came up in game that aren't basic rules. They're not, here's how you hit, here's what armor class is. No. What constitutes half cover? How fast do you move if you're running or trying to be quiet? And your difficulty classes, your damage by level and severity. Stuff that I need to have in front of me. I'm not going to need it all the time. It's not something that's going to come up all the time in every game, but when it comes up in a game, I'm not going to want to stop and go reference. I've got it right here, right in front of me. Then, 2 things that set this product above all else. a random something happens chart. Things get a little bit too quiet, the adventure ends early, roll a d20, something happens. Brilliant. Quick finds. The last thing in here. I'm going to look behind the bar. What do I find? I'm going to roll a d12 and find out. You're not coming up with that stuff off the top of your head. You certainly can, and there's a list of, it forms both a list of suggestions and a random chart if you don't feel like determining it yourself. This Game Master screen was written by people who know what you're doing behind this screen. It actually does do what a Dungeon Master screen is supposed to do. It makes running the game easier. Not how you're going to apply these rules, but that you have them directly in front of you without having to reference them. Everything that you'd be scrambling for in the middle of a game. Right there. On the whole, out of a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a game I would take out into the desert, shoot and burn, and 10 being a game that I would never stop playing, I'm going to give D&D 5th edition a solid 9. It 8.5. I'm going to give it an 8.5. It hits so many of the marks that it tries to hit that it is technically an unqualified success. They divorced it from the previous edition, 4th edition, while still retaining the tiny little bits of gold that 4th edition actually contained that you couldn't tell because of all the crap it was buried under. They synthesized previous editions of Dungeons & Dragons and added just enough to it to make it not only its own unique thing, but it works. It works. It's functional. And it gives you more to work with. In not that many more pages. They found a way to take about the same amount of page count and turn it into solid gold. There's 4 times the game there, as in most previous editions of Dungeons and Dragons. And as supplements come out and they add more races and more classes, and most importantly, what I'm really looking for is more backgrounds, it will get even broader and more diverse, and because of the structure of how they've put it together, there's no limit to where it can go. They've taken the rails off of it and made it fairly open-ended. It would not be difficult for someone to write their own material that flows with this fairly seamlessly. I might take a swing at writing a couple of D&D modules and see what Wizards thinks, because this is good. This is really good. That's my review of the core books of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. If you have a different experience with it or have any questions or comments on my review, please comment below or anywhere that you see this. Like, share, subscribe, pass it around a little bit. Get some broadcast out there. Let's spread this around a little bit. If you really liked this video and would like to see more videos like this, feel free to hit up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider being a contributor. Every little bit helps, and it all helps me to produce better videos. These upgrades are effectively courtesy of my Patreons. Thank you all. In the meantime, let's hope that my sinus infection clears out entirely by next week. I'll find something to talk about. I'm starting to get an urge to talk about political things. I should probably just sit down until that urge goes away. Might be part of the fever. In the meantime, I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.